Well, I'll say a few words afterwards. I also try to be brief, don't want to take too much time. And I'd like to wish all the best to my good friend, to the commander who was sent in the very same place back 18 years ago. And you have so much experience, wealth of experience, I'm sure you'll be fine. Hang in there. Also, same to everybody. All the best, everything imaginable possible. Looking forward to seeing you back. Thank you. I'm glad to see you too. Thanks for words. And we're both Euros. So that makes sense. All the best.
Bye-bye.
The crew, as they get ready to head down to the launch pad, took one final chance to get their picture taken. They were walked up to the actual launch structure itself. There's a group of well-wishers down there to bid the crew farewell. Soyuz itself had been fueled about 3 hours before launch. The crew bid their final farewells to the ground teams there and the people that have helped them get ready for this flight. They inclined the steps up to the Soyuz, posed for a couple more pictures, and then they hopped on board the elevator that took them to the top of the rocket. This pad that this Soyuz rocket is currently sitting on and that the crew boarded just a couple of hours ago, we always remind people, is very historic. This is the very first pad that Yuri Gagarin launched from. It, of course, was the first human in space. This is also the same pad that the Sputnik satellite was launched from back in the 1950s. To this day, it is the home of the Soyuz rocket and the Soyuz spacecraft. There you see the backup crew walking away with the American, Japanese, and Russian flags there, waving in the wind as the sun was rising there at the launch site, site number 1, there at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Back now with a live view of the Soyuz. It is continuing to billow oxygen. We are under 35 minutes away from the launch of Sonny Williams, Aki Hoshide, and Yuri Malenchenko. The crew is strapped inside the Soyuz spacecraft itself. The pad service structure have been lowered.
18.3.
They are undergoing the suit leak checks, and the re-entry vehicle testing will be complete here shortly. Coming up at 9:10 p.m. Central Time, that is when the emergency escape system will be armed. That's about 30 minutes before launch. At 9:18, you will see the service towers retract. At 9:25, there will be a few more suit leak checks that will be completed. They will arm the escape system that sits on top of the rocket. They will activate the onboard recorders coming up at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. And they will move into the final automated sequence for the launch system at 9:34 p.m. Central Time. At 9:35, that is when the launch key will be inserted there at the firing station. It is a real key, which is an interesting piece of history if you ever take a look at it. The launch conductor actually does put it in and turn it, which turns on all the systems and gets the rocket ready for the final countdown. At 9:39, we will enter into the auto sequence start. And again, launch at 9:40 and 3 seconds p.m. Central Time.
Yuri Ivanovich, this is Mr. Popovkin. Can you hear me? Loud and clear? So how are you guys doing? All comfy? Yes, we're all situated and getting ready. Excellent. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I wish you all the best of luck during the ascent and free flight operations, and hopefully everything that you wish for will come true, and all the best to you. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
That was the voice of Vladimir Popovkin, who is the head of Roscosmos, that is the Russian space agency, talking with the crew and the teams there, wishing them some final farewells. We're now at T-minus 32 minutes and 20 seconds before the launch of the Soyuz. Here's a look at the entire spacecraft itself. This first stage, which is down at the bottom, has 4 liquid engines strapped to the side of the core vehicle. Each will burn for about 1 minute 58 seconds before they are jettisoned. The core engine of the first stage also serves as the second stage and continues to burn until the 4 minute 58 second mark into the flight. Here's some animation from Roscosmos of this Soyuz and what the launch pad looks like. This gives you a sense of where this pad sits out there at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the desert in the steppes of Kazakhstan. There goes the 2 halves of the surface towers retracting. There's a series of umbilical structures that retract on command, leading down to the final liftoff count, which again tonight is at 9:40 and 3 seconds. You see the 4 boosters there on the side of that first stage burning. That is what powers the Soyuz during the first phase of flight. As we mentioned, they burn for about 1 minute 58 seconds, and they are jettisoned in quite spectacular fashion. We should get a clear view of it today. There's only a few clouds in the area there in Baikonur, so we should actually see these boosters get jettisoned. The launch abort system does come off, clearing the way for the Soyuz up on top of the vehicle. Once those boosters are gone, the core engine of the first stage serves as the second stage and continues to burn until about close to 5 minutes into the flight. At this point, the Soyuz is exposed. Its fairing is gone, so the crew gets their first views outside, out the window of the Soyuz. Once the first and second stage are gone, the third stage has a single engine that will burn for about 4 minutes and 2 seconds. It will shut down at the 9-minute mark of the flight. At that point, the Soyuz will be in its preliminary orbit of 143 by 118 miles. Those solar arrays do get deployed as soon as they're up in space. That is what provides the power for the Soyuz. A quick historic item of note, today's launch falls on the 37th anniversary of the Apollo Soyuz mission, a hallmark of American and Russian technology and teamwork that paved the way for future cooperation that helped build the International Space Station. You see the crew there. On this date back in 1975, the Soyuz 19, carrying cosmonauts Alexei Leonov and Valery Kubasov, blasted off from the very same launch pad that our Soyuz Expedition 32 crew is launching from today. And just 7 hours later, a Saturn 1B rocket launched from the Kennedy Space Center with astronauts Tom Stafford, Vance Brand, and Deke Slayton secured within their Apollo spacecraft. 2 days later, the Soyuz spacecraft with Commander Leonov at the helm and the Apollo spacecraft commanded by Stafford met in space and performed the historic first docking of 2 international spacecraft. 3 hours later, Commanders Leonov and Stafford opened the hatches between their 2 spacecraft and shared the first international handshake in space as the docked craft flew high over France. So a significant anniversary today as we celebrate 2 countries coming together in the past to help shape a future of international spirit, cooperation, and scientific discovery. And I think it is safe to say without that Apollo-Soyuz flight, we would not be here today celebrating this great international partnership that is the space station. Another item of historic note, that Apollo-Soyuz mission was handled out of the very same flight control room that this International Space Station team is in tonight. It looks quite a bit different than it did back in the 1970s. But this is this very same facility here that Paul Dye and his team were watching over this flight that did handle that Apollo-Soyuz flight back several decades ago. Now T-minus 27 minutes until the launch of the Soyuz TMA 05M. All systems are reporting green. The crew is go. We will continue to stand by and monitor the progress of these final few minutes of countdown. As we continue to take a look at this Soyuz there on the launch pad, a group of NASA representatives is there as well, and Baikonur watching over the launch countdown, and this crew as they get ready to head into space. They are standing just a short distance away from the launch pad for an update on tonight's launch. Let's go now to NASA Public Affairs Officer Rob Navius.
Josh, here in the Central Asian desert, temperatures are already approaching the low 90s and are expected to hit the triple-digit mark before the end of the day. With the 3 crew members strapped into their seats about 3/4 of a mile away from us, everything is in readiness for the liftoff of the Soyuz TMA 05M spacecraft. The NASA delegation to view today's launch is led by Bill Gerstenmaier, NASA's Associate Administrator for Human Exploration Operations, and Mike Safardini, the International Space Station Program Manager. Russian, Japanese, and Canadian officials are also here to view the launch. And a large number of the crew's family members and other invited guests have traveled to Baikonur for today's send-off. After liftoff, the Soyuz will be tracked downrange by a series of ground stations through the time it reaches its preliminary orbit. Then, control of the Soyuz's flight to the station will be in the hands of Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center outside Moscow. As a side note, Japanese space officials here are also keeping tabs on preparations for the launch of a Japanese HTV cargo ship to the station just 6 days from now at Tanegashima, Japan. In all, 9 visiting vehicle launches, dockings, undockings, and redockings will occur within a 17-day span, an unprecedented volume of activity for the International Space Station. So with spirits as high as the temperature, all is in readiness for the launch of Sonny Williams, Yuri Malenchenko, and Aki Hoshide a short time from now. That's it from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Now back to you at Mission Control in Houston.
Thank you, Rob. We are still on track for an on-time liftoff tonight at 9:40 p.m. Central Time. Coming up in just a few minutes, the service towers will be retracted. You will see it there on the live view. Coming up after that at 9:25 p.m., that is when the suit leak checks will be completed. They will arm the escape system and turn it over to the auto